Hello, everybody, and welcome finally to my year in advance Oscar predictions for the 99th Academy Awards. So, right off the bat, you may notice that I have a better audio setup than I've had for the past few years, which hopefully are going to make my videos a little bit more pleasant to listen to. Maybe further down the line, I'll do more creative stuff with the video, but hey, baby steps, baby steps. So, year in advance Oscar predictions are tricky. Last year, I did pretty well. I had one battle after another at number one. That's certainly nothing to slouch at. I had Hamnet doing pretty well. I forget exactly what my predictions were. There were a few things that I got wrong, obviously. And looking at this year, I don't think I've ever been so unsure about Oscar predicting. I mean, it just feels like I absolutely have no idea what to predict. And I usually do, but I'm never so unsure. It just looking at this list of contenders, all I see are giant question marks. And so I really want to emphasize more so than usual that this is just my best guess. And I know that this is probably going to be wrong. But if nothing else, this video is going to serve as a tool to let you guys know what movies we should have our eyes on. And what movies generally seem to be most likely to contend for awards. Of course, there are always going to be movies that come out of absolutely nowhere, and there are also going to be movies that seem like surefire contenders on paper that are one day going to end up on an episode of This Had Oscar Buzz. So, with all that being said, there is one important disclaimer that I want to get out of the way before we go any further. So, one thing that I've noticed the past couple of years is that we've gotten this phenomenon of sequels to movies that were big Oscar contenders, usually underperforming. I think a lot of us have this idea in our head of, this sequel is going to be the next Return of the King, the sequel is going to be the next Godfather 2, and I think we really need to recognize that those examples were a long time ago, and that lightning may not strike twice ever again. I think you look at Wicked completely blanking on Oscar nominations day. First movie, 10 nominations. Second movie, 0 nominations. I don't think anybody saw that coming. And even though the film was not as well received as the first film, I think the main reason why it didn't get a single nomination, not even for production design and costume design, was this idea of, we've done this already. We don't need to do it again. Look at Dune Part 2, really, really underperforming compared to the first one. Look at Avatar Fire and Ash, only getting 2 nominations when the previous film got 4 and the film before that got 9. There is a sense of diminishing returns. Joker Folie à Deux is an example of there's lots of reasons why that movie didn't work, but people were predicting it to do well at the start of the year. Gladiator 2, was that going to do well? No, lone costume nomination. Even Furiosa is a film that a lot of people thought maybe could get some below the line attention. It got nothing. There is a growing sense among Academy voters, which is, we've already rewarded this. We don't need to reward this again. And so, all of this is to say, I am currently predicting Dune Part 3 to be nominated in Best Visual Effects and Best Sound, and that's it. And I know that is crazy. I know a lot of you probably have that movie doing very, very well on your predictions, but I just don't have a lot of faith in it for all of the reasons I've listed, and the fact that the source material for this movie is not as well received as the source material for the first 2 movies. So we could see a Wicked for Good situation where the audience reception is simply not as strong. I hope you understand my reasoning. We also have a lot of big blockbuster summer movies that are coming out that I think maybe have a better shot at attention. We'll see how well they do. Obviously, as stated before, this is all educated guessing. So let's get to the video proper. Okay, so we are starting with the category of Best Casting, a category that, if last year was any indication, is going to have a pretty major correlation with the Best Picture category. So this is great as it gives me an opportunity to start by talking about all of the top Best Picture contenders. Beginning with, of course, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. Now, spoiler alert, I have this movie at number one in almost every category, and I don't feel good about it because Christopher Nolan just swept the Oscars for his last film. Am I really expecting him to sweep the Oscars again? But this movie just kind of seems too big to ignore. It is one of the biggest directors working today, adapting arguably the most famous story in history, working with all of the biggest actors in Hollywood right now, and it's the first film in history to be shot entirely with IMAX cameras. I mean, how can you not predict that to sweep the Oscars? It just seems so big, and it could fail. It could be flying a bit too close to the sun. We don't know. But as of right now, I kind of have to have this as a default choice in almost every category. So next up, I have Disclosure Day, another summer genre blockbuster. And this is a film that you may actually disagree with me on. It's Steven Spielberg. That's the main reason I have it up here. I've seen some people speculating that this movie could be more of a Ready Player One, more of a Minority Report. It's not necessarily an awards contender, but I would disagree with that. Partially because, according to the trailer, the film is going to have an emphasis on getting the truth out there and the importance of journalism. And I do think that will appeal to Academy voters, but moreover, the fact is, Spielberg is such a legendary filmmaker, and he's kind of getting up there. I think because we've lost so many legends, Spielberg may be entering that zone of every film. We don't know which one could be his last. I don't think this one will be his last, but we want to do our very, very best to reward him while he's still around. And I don't think Spielberg is going to do more of those Ready Player One BFG type movies. I think he's going to tell the stories that he really, really wants to tell. He's going to be a lot more picky with these projects, and this is his first project in a few years, and it just seems really interesting to me. And so I do have this as a top awards contender, and you may disagree with me, and that's fine. But if you're going to disagree with me, you're really going to disagree with me on this next one. So I am a strong advocator of Jane Schonbrun's previous film, I Saw the TV Glow. I believe that that was the best film of its year. I believe that that movie should have gotten a lot more awards attention than it ultimately did, largely because it was A24 and they had so many other movies that year. But I did tell myself, okay, whatever Jane Schonbrun's next film is, I will be behind that film 100% to be an awards contender. And then I found out that that film was titled Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. And that gave me pause, I'm not gonna lie. This film tells the story of a film director trying to make a horror movie and some things that happened during the making of that film, so a relationship between the director and the star. From the trailer, this seems like a very, very interesting film, and I know that this is a hope diction, but it is about making movies, and the Oscars have been known to go out of their way for more advanced art house weird films lately. It's also movie and not A24. That could potentially help it, like with The Substance. I don't know, you could say that this is a stretch, but I feel surprisingly good about this. And hey, if there's ever a time to do hope dicting, it is year in advance predictions. So I do think that this film could be a contender. I know that the title is going to be an obstacle, but would anyone have predicted last year that a movie called K-Pop Demon Hunters would win 2 Oscars? I don't think so. So I am choosing to have faith in this film. Next up is The Social Reckoning. Now, some of you might think that I'm being a little bit hypocritical here because I have a sequel here, but here's the thing. Technically, this is credited as a sequel to 2010's The Social Network, but is it really? Outside of the fact that it has the same screenwriter, it's not the same actor playing Mark Zuckerberg, it's none of the same cast, it's not the same director, and the story is entirely surrounding journalists on January 6th. And that whole story, it feels very, very separate from The Social Network, and it feels like a story that is going to be really prevalent to our current times, the sort of thing that voters are really going to get behind. The only thing that gives me pause is that Aaron Sorkin is directing, and yes, the Oscars have liked him for the past few movies. I feel like he's not the greatest director, And his writing tends to work better when he has a stronger director to work opposite of. But I do think that this is gonna probably do well, at least as well as Trial of the Chicago 7 did. So I do have this as an awards contender for now. And then we have the movie that Jesse Eisenberg made instead of The Social Reckoning, which is Untitled Jesse Eisenberg Film. Okay, I know that that title isn't doing much, but I am very intrigued because this is a film about a woman played by Julianne Moore who is going through a midlife crisis and decides to sign up for a community theater play. And Paul Giamatti is in it, and it just seems like the type of feel-good story that everybody's parents are going to love. And Jesse Eisenberg came really, really close to a Best Picture nomination for A Real Pain, so I have a lot of faith in this one. I think we need an uplifting, fun film compared to what some of these heavier contenders are. So I do think that this one is going to do well. So then, just missing the casting category, but absolutely getting into Best Picture, is Alejandro G. Inarritu's Digger. Now, Inarritu, it's been a while since Birdman and The Revenant, and the one movie that he made in between the, Bardo, not exactly a top awards juggernaut, as I correctly predicted, but this one is interesting because he's collaborating with Tom Cruise. And in the film, Cruise is playing a very wealthy CEO who is trying to save planet Earth from a catastrophe that he may have caused. And it seems like a really interesting, fun idea. I'm very, very curious about what this collaboration is going to look like. Tom Cruise, it's been a while since he's been chasing awards gold, but he is very beloved within the industry, and this could be a vehicle for him, an actor. And so, yeah, I've got faith in this one. I also have faith in Project Hail Mary. This is the big first half of the year contender that does really, really well. The first half of the year genre film. I think as soon as reviews came out for this one, people are like, this is happening. This is getting into Best Picture. There wasn't even a lot of discourse surrounding it. And having seen the film, yeah, I do think this is probably happening in Best Picture. I don't think it's happening in casting because the cast is so small, but this is definitely a top contender to keep our eye on. And it's possible that I have it placed a little bit higher than it deserves to be in some categories, but this feels like a sure thing, and a lot of movies do not feel like sure things right now. The Rivals of Amziah King. So this is one I'm maybe a little bit more optimistic on than I should have been, because this played at Sundance last year to really, really strong reviews. And a lot of people thought that it would be a strong contender that year, but ultimately the film did get postponed. And as we've seen with Sing Sing and Life of Chuck, it can be really, really hard for a movie that did well at festivals one year to keep that momentum going another year. But I don't know. The reviews for this one are just so strong. I do feel like this might be the type of film we haven't gotten in a while, that really strong indie about a parent-child relationship that does well. So I am choosing to have faith in this one. Parallel Tales. Okay, so at this point, you have to have at least one non-English language film in your Best Picture 10. It's so hard to know which one that's going to be, considering all of the high contenders, but I'm choosing to put my faith in Parallel Tales because it's Asghar Farhadi, who is an absolute legend, one of the few filmmakers who has directed more than one movie that's won the Best International Feature Prize. And that happened prior to the Oscars really embracing international cinema. So Farhadi has not gotten one of his films in picture and director yet, but I do think that could change. Very, very excited for this one. And then there's Narnia, which is Greta Gerwig's next big project. And it's a film that I'm not entirely sure what to feel about because I love Greta Gerwig and I will follow her anywhere. The idea of doing a Chronicles of Narnia reboot does feel weird, but I'm open to it. The fact that she's starting with The Magician's Nephew instead of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is the much more famous story, has me very intrigued. And so I don't want to cut her out. What I have currently is I have this movie as a below the line contender, not getting in above the line, but that could change. Now, this is actually the first year that I want to do international feature. I want to include that category in my year in advance predictions. simply because so many of these films I have had to look at because I don't know which one of them are going to contend beyond international feature. I have Parallel Tales at number one. In second place, I have Fjord, which is the director of 4 Months, 3 Weeks, 2 Days, starring Renate Reinsve and Sebastian Stan. Uh, Interested in this one. I don't know a whole lot about it. Some people are very, very confident that this is going to be the international feature that does well. And I have this in second place. I don't know, just a weird gut feeling that I have. There's also All of a Sudden, which is Hamaguchi, Fatherland, which is Pawlikowski, and Look Back, which is the guy who made Shoplifters. I'm sorry, I'm really just going off of directors' names, because that's kind of all I have to go on with the international films. I think most of these we have to wait for them to premiere before we really know which one of them are going to be contenders. So, are any of these films going to contend? Maybe, maybe not. But I wanted to throw my hat in the ring and do international feature this year, even though I still have so little information about these films. Animated feature, my favorite category every year. Last year I had Wildwood at number one, and then it got pushed, so I have Wildwood at number one again. I have a lot of faith in Leica, and they are really building up this project as something incredible. Now, some of you may know that I always like to push animated movies to contend outside of their designated category, and I did toy with the idea of, okay, how well do I want to predict Wildwood to do? Having read the book, I don't think there is enough of an emotional through line to get it into Best Picture. I would be happy to be wrong. But I do think it could potentially get into score, sound, visual effects, even production design, and I'm sort of toying with that a little bit as I do my predictions. I'm hoping that this movie can do somewhat well and maybe be a stepping stone for Beyond the Spider-Verse next year to get into Best Picture. And I know that's kind of breaking my sequels rule, but shut up, I'm a hypocrite. Okay, so outside of Wildwood, we have two Pixar movies, Hoppers and Toy Story 5. Hoppers has already come out and it is a bona fide hit, and so I would be shocked if that missed. And then Toy Story 5, we'll see. I know a lot of people are not excited about this movie. A lot of people say, why is this franchise still going? But the premise does seem intriguing enough, and there is a world where it really, really hits emotionally and it becomes the first Pixar movie to win in a long time. So we'll see. I'm going to have my eye on that one. And then the last two slots, I have Shaun the Sheep because it's a new Aardman movie and that just makes sense. And then Forgotten Island. This movie was not on my radar initially, but the trailer just came out and a lot of people are very intrigued by this one. So I've decided to put it in fifth place over Ray Gun, which is Brad Bird. He's obviously a name that's very well respected in the animation industry. The fact that this is Skydance and not Disney has me a little bit concerned though. So I did decide to put Forgotten Island in fifth place. There's also Hexed, which is Disney, but Disney has been struggling with their musicals as of late, so little is known about this movie. We'll have to wait and see. And then Goat, which has come out to pretty strong reviews. Maybe it could get in, but I do feel like it's so early in the year, there's a good chance that that movie will be forgotten because there is a lot of interesting competition coming out this year. Okay, next up is Best Sound. So I have Odyssey at number one, Project Hail Mary, that makes a lot of sense, Disclosure Day, Dune, so this is where I have that film getting in, and then Wildwood in fifth place. Just really want to bump up the possibility that Wildwood could be an across-the-board contender. Okay, any films I haven't mentioned yet. The Dog Stars. This is Ridley Scott. And Ridley Scott is the king of movies that look like they're going to be awards contenders on paper and don't fully work at the end of the day. And this is an apocalypse story. So maybe, maybe not. I mean, Digger is also an apocalypse story. The thing is, Ridley Scott's movies do tend to get nominated somewhere. So I could see this one just eking out a below-the-line nomination or two. We'll have to see. And then Werewolf, Robert Eggers back after Nosferatu. Very, very intrigued about this one. I think I have it doing roughly the same as Nosferatu, but we'll see. Song. So I have the Jesse Eisenberg film in number one, just because this is a movie that is very intriguing to me, and I do believe there are going to be original songs in it. Toy Story 5, because Randy Newman has gotten in for all the previous films. Narnia, because I'm just guessing that there will be a song. Shape of a Woman is the new Lady Gaga song in The Devil Wears Prada 2, and I think Lady Gaga is enough of a big name that she can contend. And then, What the Heck is Maserati the Brothers? It's a movie with a Diane Warren song, okay? I found one. I knew I had to put her in the top 5. Funnily enough, I didn't see this movie on her IMDb at first, and I panicked because I thought I was going to have to predict this very cheap animated movie to get nominated instead. But no, she has this, and that should be enough. Best Original Score, The Odyssey, Disclosure Day. Even if Disclosure Day does end up bombing, we can at least rest assured that John Williams is getting nominated, because he's getting nominated for everything he does from now until he dies. And then that last slot, I was going to have Wildwood in 5th place, but after seeing Project Hail Mary, I was like, that score is really, really good. It probably is getting in. So, yeah. I don't know for sure how this category is going to shake out. Okay, Jack of Spades, first time mentioning that film. That's Carter, well, it's Carter Burwell doing the score, but the direction is done by Joel Cohen. Now, ever since Joel Cohen and Ethan Cohen split ways, Ethan Cohen has not made the most interesting movies, and Joel Cohen, he's made one, Tragedy Macbeth, which got 3 nominations. I think the reason why that movie didn't do better is because it's such a familiar story that everybody knew. I think doing something original like this is very intriguing to me. So I do have that one doing potentially pretty well. Visual effects. We got so many big visual effects contenders this year. I kind of don't know how to rank them. So we really will just have to wait and see with this category. Would love if Wildwood could make the top 5, but it's looking very, very tight. Okay, next up is Best Makeup and Hairstyling. So I have Narnia in 1st place only because the last big Narnia movie also won in this category. Maybe that's kind of basic logic. This is one of the few tech categories. No, it's the only tech category where I don't have the Odyssey winning. Maybe it will be Werewolf. We'll see. Resident Evil. This is Zach Kreger, who just did Weapons. And the Oscars clearly like him. So I am curious about this new Resident Evil movie. It would be really interesting if Zach Kreger ends up being the person to finally direct a video game movie that gets an Oscar nomination. Because so far it hasn't happened, but we've gotten closer. Wuthering Heights, not a film that I'm predicting to do well above the line, but I am very curious to know if it can get in a few places below the line. Still haven't seen that one yet, but I am itching to do so. Costume design. I have Wuthering Heights nominated here, as well as The Odyssey, Narnia, Werewolf, and Devil Wears Prada 2, which maybe is a little bit of a stretch. I don't know. Michael is an interesting example because I think we're sort of assuming that that one is just going to bomb, but there's a chance it does really, really well. And if it does really, really well, watch out, because the Oscars love a good music biopic. We just don't know if this is going to be a good music biopic. Everything else, Mother Mary, David Lowery, A24. Very, very curious about that one, but David Lowery has not really made any awards contending films before, so we'll see. Production design, I forgot I did this. This is maybe my big No Guts, No Glory. I have Wildwood in for production design, just because every time they make a stop motion animated movie, there's so much behind the scenes focus on, look, we really did make these sets. These sets are hand painted, hand crafted. They're just smaller than sets for a live action movie, but we really did this. And I think there is mounting pressure to finally get an animated movie nominated for the production design Oscar. It hasn't happened yet, and everything I've seen of Wildwood looks so extraordinary. So yeah, I'm really, really going out on a limb, but I want this to happen. I want this to happen so bad. Anything else? I kind of skipped over it, but yeah, I do think Wuthering Heights is getting a lone costume nomination. Best cinematography. So I have almost nothing to say. I do think Hoyt van Hoytema is going to win again for The Odyssey because, hey, shot entirely on IMAX. What can you say? And Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. Gonna have to get used to that title. I do think From the Trailer has really stunning cinematography. We'll see whether or not Project Hail Mary can get in, but Yeah, I've talked about all of these movies before. I don't really have too much to add. Editing, same thing. These are all movies that I've talked about. Not much to say when we get to the middle of these tech categories. Okay, adapted screenplay. So I have The Odyssey, I have Project Hail Mary, I have Social Reckoning, Death of a Salesman. Okay, so this one is kind of interesting because, oh, why am I predicting another Death of a Salesman movie to get in? But this is from the director of Till, and it has black actors cast in the lead roles, which has me very intrigued to take a very iconic, famous play and reinterpret it through a new lens of what if the main character was a man of color. That I'm very, very intrigued by that. And so I do have that in. I'm not super. Yeah, I don't really know what to put in that last slot, so I just decided Look Back from Hirokazu. Interestingly, if that title sounds familiar, it's because it is an adaptation of a story that was turned into an animated film a few years ago. So if this movie is a top awards contender, are we going to have our first live action remake in the Oscar conversation? I don't know. Yeah, not much else to say. Oh, Being Human. That's an interesting film from. I'll get to that one in Best Actress. Let's just get to the acting categories now. Hey, so I'm recording this bit after I've recorded everything else, just to say that I'm sorry I forgot to talk about original screenplay. I don't know how that happened, but to be honest, I don't have that much to say. I have Digger at number one. This is one of the few categories where I can't put The Odyssey at number one. And then everything else makes a certain amount of sense to me. It's crazy that I have to put Jack of Spades in sixth place, but this is looking like it's going to be one of those years where all the top Best Picture contenders are original. And the other movies I managed to talk about later in the video. So, yeah, hopefully this is going to give you a good demonstration as to what the old recording audio sounds like versus what the new audio sounds like. So with that said, now let's talk about the acting categories. Supporting actor. So I toyed with who to put at number one for this. I thought about Jesse Plemons, I thought about Jeremy Strong, but Paul Giamatti is a legend. He came pretty close to winning for The Holdovers, and he's going to have a very strong supporting role in this film, I think. So I do have him there. Plemons and Strong could also contend. Holland for The Odyssey, we'll see. We'll see what kind of. He needs a really, really good role to break away from Spider Man. And I do have Jeremy Allen White, so Social Reckoning gets 2 supporting nominations. I'm still very unsure about Wild Horse 9, but if Steve Buscemi finally has a good role to get him Oscar nominated, that would be great to see. And I genuinely don't know who has the more showy role in Digger, Jesse Plemons or Riz Ahmed. So that's something we're just going to have to wait and see. Colin Firth, Cry to Heaven is a Tom Ford movie, so the same guy who did A Single Man and Nocturnal Animals. Kind of keeping an eye on that one, but for whatever reason, it's just not at the top of my list, even though for many people it is at the top of their lists. Best Supporting Actress. Okay. I probably should not have Anne Hathaway at number one on this list, but I do think she can get nominated again for playing Penelope in The Odyssey. Angelina Looking Glass, as I made the case for her last year, it's been a while since the Oscars nominated a child in these categories, and Angelina has gotten really, really strong notices for doing basically a lead performance in this film. I do think she should contend. Gillian Anderson, though, starting to wonder if maybe she could be our supporting actress contender. And Octavia Spencer, she used to be a staple of this category. It's been a while since she's gotten nominated. Let's nominate her again for playing this very iconic role in Death of a Salesman. And I was torn on that last slot. I ultimately went with Leslie Manville just because I'm not sure how big of a role Zendaya is going to have in The Odyssey. I know Athena, but I have to remind myself this is not an adaptation of Epic the Musical. Zendaya is not going to be singing My Goodbye. So we'll see how Nolan chooses to adapt this story. Demi Moore, maybe. I'm sort of hearing that movie is not going to be an Everything Everywhere style contender, even though they're trying to push it as one. Wumi Masaku, she came very close to winning last year, so we'll see. Parker Posey and Emma Mackey, yeah, just names that I'm throwing out there. I really don't know with this category. Best Actor. Okay, So I think a lot of people have Tom Cruise at number one just because the narrative would be so cool if it happened. He was nominated for a bunch of Oscars in the past, but he hasn't been nominated for a while, and this would potentially be a really, really great role for him. He hasn't been chasing an Oscar for most of his career, but I think he can start. I think he wants it. I think he wants it this time. Matt Damon may be in contention also. Josh O'Connor seems like he's going to have a really interesting role in Disclosure Day. And then Ryan Gosling, you may or may not. Honestly, whether or not Ryan Gosling makes the top five is going to be entirely dependent on how strong a year this is for leading actors. And then I have Jeffrey Wright, who's playing a very iconic role in Death of a Salesman. Pedro Pascal in Behemoth, that's a movie from Tony Gilroy, who hasn't made a film in a while, but Pascal is such a beloved actor, and I'm very curious to know if he has an awards bait role with this film. Robert Aramayo famously won the BAFTA for I Swear. I'm very curious to how well that movie can do, because I don't think that movie has any realistic shots outside of him. And I think the whole controversy with the real-life Tourette's man swearing at BAFTA, I do think that that hurts the film. So I'm not very confident in its chances. Jafar Jackson, maybe there's a world where he is still in contention, but to be honest, I just don't see it. And for the record, Josh O'Connor, who's in Disclosure Day, is also in Jack of Spades. And I could predict him to get in for that as well, but that's the tricky thing. You're only allowed to nominate an actor for one movie that they do a year, which is kind of a weird rule, but I'm choosing to put him in for Disclosure Day for now. Best Actress. So we have Emily Blunt for Disclosure Day. I feel weird about this. Watching the trailer again, I'm like, okay, this is probably more Josh O'Connor's story. The only reason why I have Blunt up is that she's never won, and that she's beloved, and because I could put Julianne Moore in here, but she's won before, and Mikey Madison also obviously just won before. Maybe Hannah Einbinder if the movie is really well liked, but I don't know how showy of a role that's going to be, so I'm just defaulting to Blunt because she has the narrative of never having won. And then Cynthia Erivo I have in fifth place just because she's a legend and she's taking on a role that is a Tony-winning role. I don't know much about the movie. I don't know if it has chances outside of actress, but definitely keeping my eye on that one. Renate Reinsve and Isabelle Huppert, it's debatable which of those movies are going to be the stronger contender. I've heard Huppert is maybe more supporting, but we'll see. Ruth Madeley. So Being Human is a biopic from the directors of Coda, and Madeley is a real-life disabled woman playing a famous disabled woman. And that narrative might be enough to compel her to a nomination. We will have to see. And then I do have Meryl Streep in 10th place, which is probably a bit of a stretch. But again, Streep is so legendary, and she sort of took a break from Hollywood for a little while. She hasn't been nominated since The Post. Maybe the Oscars will be like, hey, we don't know how many great performances you have left in you. Let's nominate you for Devil Wears Prada 2, especially if that movie is a hit. In the category of Best Director, I do have Christopher Nolan in first place. Can he win again? I also have Alejandro Inarritu. Can he win again? Steven Spielberg. Can he win again? Probably none of these three, if we're going to be honest with you, because the Oscars sometimes feel weird about repeat wins. Jane Schonbrun. I feel like we need one female director in contention, even though Jane Schonbrun, I believe, is non-binary and so doesn't entirely fit that qualification, but I don't really know who else would. Asghar Farhadi finally getting that director nomination that's been overdue. And then everyone else these are just sort of the names that are thrown around of some of the top contenders, and I don't really know what to say. I don't really know if Nolan is going to win again, but the movie just seems so big, and that actually, let's just go right to Best Picture, where I have The Odyssey at number one. Now, I want to stress that if my current predictions end up being correct, then The Odyssey will break the record for most Oscar wins in history, which, considering the fact that we just had a movie break the record for most Oscar nominations in history, I guess is not entirely out of the question, but still, it would be absolutely insane if it happened. And probably it's not going to happen. But, so looking at all of these contenders, I believe I've talked in length about all these films, because I tried to ask myself, if it's not The Odyssey for Best Picture, then what is it? And I think the closest I could come up with is Digger, but Inaritu has also won fairly recently, and I just don't know for sure if that's going to be a hit. At this point, when I'm doing year in advance Oscar predictions, I'm mainly focused on what's going to get nominated and not so much what's going to win. So having The Odyssey at number one makes sense, especially when I have it winning everything else. So yeah, I kind of don't know what else to do with this category. It's possible Project Hail Mary is too high, but again, I just have a lot of faith in that one because it's the one that we've seen. And everything else, okay, I Love Boosters is one that I mentioned earlier as from Boots Riley. Maybe could be a thing, but from what I hear, it's just a little too out there. It's a fine line between just out there enough and too out there. It depends on what Oscar voters are feeling on the day. And Josephine. Do I really have Josephine at 15 and nowhere else? Well, this is a film from Sundance that was a big hit. Apparently is really good, but from everything I've heard, it might be one of those movies kind of like Mass, where the subject matter is just too uncomfortable for people. And plus, it doesn't have a good distributor yet. I don't know who's distributing it. Sumerian Pictures. Okay. So, yeah, looking at all of these contenders, I'm not super optimistic. There's some intriguing movies here, but I'm not sure if this is going to be a really, really good Best Picture lineup or a not so good Best Picture lineup. I don't know how many international contenders we're going to have. I don't know what contenders are going to come out of absolutely nowhere. I mean, I feel obligated to at least mention some of the movies that I haven't talked about yet. The Adventures of Cliff Booth is David Fincher doing a spin-off of Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It seems like such an incredibly weird idea, and even though Fincher is considered very overdue for an Oscar, and I did consider it, the trailer did nothing for me. This is just not a movie that many people seem that excited over, so I don't have it getting in anywhere. The drama, this is Zendaya and Robert Pattinson. I hear that this is a very weird movie too, and it's probably too out there for most Oscar voters. I just wanted to mark it down because Zendaya is going to have a very, very good year, and it's possible that the Oscars want to reward her with a nomination somewhere. The Entertainment System is Down. This is Ruben Östlund's follow-up to Triangle of Sadness, a movie that I didn't really like, but a lot of people did. And it tells the story of a group of people on a flight who have to wrestle with each other when the Wi-Fi goes down. And this one might be intriguing. Stars Kirsten Dunst and Keanu Reeves. I don't know if the Triangle of Sadness vibe just wasn't for me. The whole Eat the Rich narrative. I wonder if I don't want to say moving past it, but just if it's feeling a little bit stale at this point. So I don't know if that film is going to do as well as Triangle of Sadness did. Ink. This is what I'm mildly curious about because it's Danny Boyle, who just had a nice comeback with 28 Years Later, doing a more awards-friendly narrative with Jack O'Connell and Guy Pearce, newspaper drama, I believe. I don't know much about this yet, but I'm just keeping an eye out on it. Josephine, as I said. Madden, this is David O. Russell trying once again to have a career, but Amsterdam was such a colossal failure that I can't imagine he can bounce back from it. I think the simple fact that Nicolas Cage is in the lead role, the one actor who has never said no to a script in his life, tells you everything that you need to know. And then Saturn Return, this is Greg Quidar's follow-up to Sing Sing, a movie that came very close to Best Picture nomination. I don't know. A lot of people have this in. Some people don't. I just don't know that much about it. I think it's a romance with Will Poulter and Rachel Brosnahan, but I'm not sure. And I kind of have the Jesse Eisenberg film taking up that slot of nice feel-good film. So again, a lot of these are just based on vibes. These are films that I don't know much about at all, and it just have to go with the films that are intriguing to me right now. And I could definitely be proven wrong. I probably will be proven wrong. But we will just have to wait and see. Thank you so much for watching the video. Let me know if the audio quality really is better than the previous videos, because hopefully I will continue this setup in the future. I don't know what is to come for my channel in between the Oscar prediction videos, but yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.